Hey everyone, happy Thursday. I hope that you've had a really great week. Thanks to each of you who've been tuning into my Facebook Lives with coaching clients. We're doing our 60-day sprint, which is always lots of fun and gets everyone fired up and double practices and make a huge impact in the world. And so I just wanted to tell you thank you for doing that. And I'm really excited to have my friend Rich Carr with me. Some of you know him. You've seen him around. He and Dr. Kieran Omadi wrote the book Brain-Centric Design. If you heard me speak in the last probably, I guess, year and a half, 2 years, then you've gotten to taste a piece of brain-centric design. And Rich just came out with his newest book called Surprised, The Science and Art of Engagement. So Rich, welcome and thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Barb. It's great to be here again. This is actually my second trip with you and your audience, so I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, we did it a couple years. Gosh, was it already 2 years ago? I don't even remember.
Yeah.
When we talked about brain-centric design, and at the time I was doing the brain-centric instructional designer course, and it's been really fun to see other clients go through that course and just like have their mind blown about how much easier communication and learning is when we're doing it from a brain-centric perspective. So let's talk about what's your background?
My background is, I just started out as a DJ. Believe it or not, I wanted to be a marine biologist, but it's a long story as to why I didn't go there. But I got into radio, and when I went in from radio into sales, and sales into my first taste of the brain. I remember reading a book by Roy Williams called The Wizard of Ads. He was a copywriter. Anyway, he was the first one that mentioned a part of the brain that was usable like an instrument rather than 3 pounds of goop. So I started using that piece of the brain and was pretty successful. And then I ended up buying some radio stations, sold those, went to work for Telemundo and Cuponos de Valle in Palm Springs. Yeah. And then was hired by Clear Channel Communications Radio to be director of sales. And then I was hired by Paul Allen in Microsoft to run some digital radio properties down, or the director of, I forget what it was even called now, director of something online, because the internet and radio, as they saw it, were going to be one thing. The internet would be like the visual part of the radio station. So that was kind of how they got into that. And then I got into all kinds of stuff, started my own agency back in 2002, and been running that until we started Brain-Centric Design. And then more and more and more, I've gone over to that side of the business because, like you, if people present their information in the way that the brain processes it, you win. And what we found since that recipe came out is it's applicable to any communicator or anybody who communicates with consequences, I guess would be a better way to say that. If you speak for a living, sales, management, pretty much everybody, you want what you say to be not only fully received, but understood and acted on the way you thought they would once you gave it to them. Like if you're telling your kid not to drive drunk, you hope that they hear that whole message and they don't drive drunk. So you could pitch anything with that, but basically that was the goal, was to find out how those things were put together. And my background was, if you really look at back all the way to radio, I made my living trying to convince people to do something in 30 seconds. I was doing that for 20 years. And there's a science to it, it ends up. And now there is an actual documented model, which is brain-centric design. That's my background.
There you go. So Rich was doing 30 seconds long before TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah, since 1981, I was making my living off of 10, 30, and 60-second increments of radio time. And it's a weird dynamic when you think about it. So not so much now, but back then radio was all you had, right?
Yeah.
And so you have people listening, or they're working in the barn or fixing the car, driving to work, or whatever it is they're doing. Pretty much did it always the same time. You drive to work the same way. You listen to the same radio station. There are certain things you found out about the audience. but the radio was key. It was the communication device. It's where you went when it was stormy, to see if school was canceled. And yeah, 30 seconds to not only be stand out with the other 24 hours of information that's on the station, but your 30 seconds, I got to grab your ears, suck you inside the radio, convince you to buy that couch, drive down to Fitterers and give them the money, and in 30 seconds. And that's how I made my living. And, the more the set you sell, the better you did. And I stumbled into the brain during that part of my career where it's like, oh, I could get people to pay attention, which is now like engagement, right? So there's a science to that. It ends up, but nobody's ever put it into the framework. There's tons of paperwork. And then my colleague, Kieran, as you had spoken of, had been studying that thing for 40 years, trying to get it into schools. And then I was introduced to him, and one thing led to another. And both his school piece and our business piece are skyrocketing.
Yeah, amazing transformations in schools with
Yeah.
with what Kieran's doing, like, and the, like, at-risk populations at schools, which I
Well,
love.
and now early learning too.
Yeah,
I mean, he is now documenting a curriculum for early learning prior to preschool, right, or prior to kindergarten, that's both outdoor and whole brain learner centric. So not only can you put your kids in this learning center, but you as a parent would have to learn how to speak to your kid this way. You would have to learn the brain skills as well, because that's how they're going to be taught. So you can't just pay the money because you got money. You have to understand that there's a
oh,
language that goes from teacher to kid to you, and it all has to be the same. It's really
that's
exciting.
awesome. Let's
Yeah.
hear it for the orchids.
Yeah.
Like, that's gonna change their life.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. And just like what you see in chiropractic practice and I see in business all over the world, when people change the way they say stuff, which is all this is about, uh, and rather than trying to be clever or shocking or anything like that, when they align it with the way the brain will process information, because all our brains process it the same way, success follows. And this is a recipe, and
Yeah,
so that's where the new book came in, surprise. So if you really look at all the neuroscience behind what this is, what you get is a layering of like a lasagna. Like each
yeah.
layer complements the next. And really what the secret to communication is a series of surprises stacked on top of each other for a purpose. It's the same model from brain-centric design, just rather than documenting the science, we wanted to give people the applicable tools, instruments, templates, and how-tos to get it done. So, I mean, you won't read this book straight through when you sit down with it. You're going to be filling it full of post-it notes and underlining stuff and doing as much as you can, because it's a workbook. There's a book within a book. Uh, it's crazy what you can do with surprise. And I gathered all this great stuff, and it's just a giant collection of essays you can apply today.
So can you give us some examples of of communication not aligning with the what you're teaching in surprised, and then communication using surprised principles?
Yeah, well, maybe a better way of answering that is saying what surprise results in. And it always results in the same thing. There's this moment of time directly following a surprise called the recovery period. You've just been surprised, and you go through like 9 elements in your body, from your expectations to understanding what just happened. But there's like 9 layers of this surprise that happens in these engagements. And that in that recovery period, you are at your most receptive to new information.
Mm,
So as soon as you're surprised, everything in your whole body has been interrupted, and all of your assets are whatever surprised you and the thing that comes next.
okay.
So you can surprise. There's like 5 general surprises and dozens of specific surprises. So an example for a general surprise would be like a positive surprise. Like you put on your pair of pants and you find a 20 in the pocket. Oh, it's a nice
Yeah.
surprise. Yeah, your world hasn't changed. But then there are things like a cognitive surprise where the world as you saw it moments ago no longer is there because this thing just happened. We call that a light bulb moment, when all of a sudden the aha happens. That's a
Okay.
cog. So you can set up these surprises for an effect. So in your profession, let's say a chiropractor is doing a treatment plan and you want that 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 patient to come back and follow up on that treatment plan. What you need to do is not be you have to understand their expectations and give them a series of surprises that make them want to come back. Not only want them to come back for the retention piece, but even be mouthpieces for you on the street. Because chiropractors, as we've spoken, they clear neural pathways, the literal highway to the brain. They make this thing work better. They don't just fix pain, they make the world better. And how you present what you do to a patient is the difference between night and day. I mean, they expect you to go to school. They expect you to have the cloak and all the stuff that you have. I go to chiropractors, so I know. You expect that, right? What you don't expect is whatever you're going to set up for whatever reason. It might be the way they're greeted. It might be the way they leave their first adjustment and come back, and suddenly you surprise them again with how you greeted them rather than being all doctorly and talking about C5 and C6 and subluxations and dislocations. I don't care. My neck hurts.
Yeah.
And I have an emotion attached with that. And at the root of the book Surprised, it 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 really dives into the profound impact that the emotion of surprise has on engagement, and the fact that you can not only orchestrate these surprises in a multitude of ways, but it's always to get what you want. And I know
Mhm.
that sounds kind of greedy, but it's not. You communicate for consequences. You have a great wealth of knowledge, Barb, and when you talk, chiropractors listen because you've launched all over the world these successful practices. You've done it because you understand to communicate. You even went further and got certified as a brain centric instructional designer. So now you understand that humans process information the same way, but they need to feel it first. They need to feel an emotion before you're going to get any benefit. And so what BCD and Surprise is one is the documentation of the science, the other one is how to apply it. And that's whether you're a parent or a chiropractor or a manager or whatever. If you communicate for a living, and successful communication or persuasive communication is what you have to do, that's what this is for. I was trying originally when I first started this whole quest. This sounds horrible. I really wanted to find out for the brain what the perfect sales pitch was, because I didn't want to
Yeah.
make 10 calls to make one sale, right? I wanted to make
Yeah.
10 calls and make 10 sales. That's
Right.
greed kind of fueled the quest. But what was weird was as I was researching all of this, that greed question was really changed, and I was really just asking the wrong question. It wasn't how to make the perfect sale, it was how to communicate perfectly every time.
Right.
and and that's what made it easy after that. It's like, well, communication happens to the brain. It doesn't happen from a man or a woman or this politician or this religion or this what you do at the kitchen, what temperature you like your tea. Has nothing to do with any of that. You're communicating to a brain, so communicate to the brain the way the brain wants to be communicated to. It sounds super easy. It's because it is. I mean, you're a testament that people will overthink this science when they come into it because we're adults and we've heard this and we've done that. But that's not the case. I mean, it's actually once you get over the hump, once you get high enough and see what's going on up there,
Yeah.
there's only a few moving parts that you have to be concerned about. And once you understand those parts, those instruments, uh, just watch the world unfold.
Yeah, I think what Rich is referring to there is I'm the person that, like, I just need enough and then I'll go. And he and Kieran were both like, slow your roll. Like just
Slow that roll.
slow it down, which I love. Like, as simplistic as you just put it, if we remember we're not really communicating to the person, we're communicating to their brain, it's necessary then to redo how we're communicating and the ways in which and what we're emphasizing and how. And I think one of the biggest things that I learned in BCD was the impact the amygdala has. So
Hmm.
now with surprised, if it like, so it's almost like surprised is the exact opposite of the amygdala. And for those of you who aren't aware, the amygdala is like the gatekeeper. So if we're stressed or confused or worried, like we're done being able to process, like we're just into the hindbrain now. And really the thing that we want the person to do is shut up. So those of you who are in business or communicating with your spouse or your children, if you want that person to just be wishing you would shut up, then keep communicating the way we're doing it. But if instead you want more effect and you want better consequences, this is the stuff to learn. It's just how the brain works from a neuroscience perspective.
If
Um,
if
Go
I
ahead.
can share my screen, I can kind of give a representation of that. Like I'm
Oh,
gonna.
let me see. Like you're getting pretty high tech there.
Oh, you
Uh,
never know. Let's. I'll click something here, and maybe it'll do it. Yeah, it's gonna do it. I think. No. Well,
uh,
no. I was
I
gonna
wish
show.
I could invite your screen.
You have to invite my screen. Okay.
Could you be on a
Um,
different? No, you couldn't be on a different computer. This sounds like, oh wait, present. Let me just see. An extra camera, a video file, slides, share screen. Share screen with two monitors.
yeah, it's
Uh,
probably not gonna let us do it.
it doesn't
That's
look like
okay. Yeah, yeah, but what I was going to show was that amygdala piece versus why there's surprise, because
oh,
you
good.
can, yeah, and I can describe it. If you look at the whole landscape in front of you is like your emotional spectrum. So right now it's still fuzzy, but work with me here. If you looked at the horizon and there's a spectrum of colors, and let's just say to your left there are very deep, dark red valleys, lots of them. And
Okay.
and these things represent over there, these red valleys represent like boredom, fear, uh, anything that's not good for you, uh, untrustfulness, anything that is bad is over here in these valleys. And on the other end, the right end of the spectrum, are these green mountains, these green peaks, lofty. Those represent like the emotion of being happy or having fun. When you're in these deep valleys of being bitter or trapped or in fear, you can't see out of the valley. You get succumbed by your own emotions down there and these bad emotions. When you're happy, you're ready for everything because you're not on guard, right? There's a bridge to get you from those red valleys to those green peaks. It's gold and it's called surprise. The only way to get from unengaged to engaged is to be surprised. That's why there are so many kinds of different surprises that people have to be aware of, good or bad. A surprise can be done for effect because, again, what it does in a fleeting moment is get your attention. And if you know what to present right after that, starting with that recovery period, then engaged goes changes really from a noun to a verb because you have to keep them engaged, which means you need to surprise. Look at it like a relationship. If you two got together every night at 5 o'clock and you had the same dinner and had the same conversation, that'd be fun about twice.
Exactly twice.
Yeah, for most people. I mean, this is why it's so obvious. But
Yeah.
if you mix it up, like all of a sudden it's Taco Tuesday, and hey, let's barbecue tonight, or
Yeah.
hey, we had a great garden, let's go pick some vegetables and then we'll make a salad together. Same activity, lots of little surprises in there. This brain loves novelty. That's why we want the Beatles to always put out a different album. if they put out the same album every time, they wouldn't have been so popular, or Beyonce or whoever I'm talking about. We like the unexpected. We look for the unexpected. We thrive on the unexpected. What do we get when we go to a chiropractor? Pretty much the same thing. Here's all my diplomas, and here's a big clip chart with the stuff I'm going to talk about because I went to school, and let me teach you about chiropractic. Only my kind of chiropractic, because that guy over there, he's tonal, and he's upper cervical, and mine. You get
Right.
lost in it, and I don't mean to, I'm generalizing,
Right.
but the focus in
Mm.
my past has not been so much on the patient. And even if it is on the patient, great for you. But when you understand A before E, or for a affect before effect, like you said before, this recipe, then you just see it all happen, because they didn't teach you that part in school. Might have touched on it. But now that you have all this knowledge, you just need to understand how to communicate it to get what you want. And these things take planning. It's a little different than just shooting from the hip because you went through 16 plus in school. Promise you it's different than that. There's a lot of planning to this. And but once you understand how to plan, it goes very quick. And again, you get very predictable results, which are always positive, because it's H2O is always water, BCD is always understanding, and surprise is
Mm.
always that tool that guarantees successful engagement, because every successful engagement is rooted in the unexpected.
I love that. And for those of you who aren't aware, you can catch Rich a couple of places. He will be at the Ultimate Marketing Bootcamp in November. I put the link to that in the comment section, and Rich and I just talked this week. We're changing things up a little bit um, to be even more amazing at the Ultimate Marketing Bootcamp. You're not going to want to miss that. There are only 11 spots left. So if you've been thinking about it, stop thinking and take action. It will be a game changer. Rich is going to be there to help us bring in the element of surprise intentionally, teach us how to do that in our messaging. So, like Rich just said, that we have predictable results. Like, who wants predictable results with your social media? Who wants predictable results with
Yeah.
your conversations at your chiropractic table? Like, we all do. And bringing in these elements of neuroscience, because we're communicating with brains, not with the person, make a huge difference. He'll also be doing the keynote at Cal Chiro. I'll also be speaking at that, so we'd love to see you there. And then I think we have a couple of other gigs next year at different chiropractic events. So catch us first at Cal Chiro, and then at the Ultimate Marketing Boot Camp for Surprised. And also go and grab your book. It's on Amazon right now. It just got released. I put the link in the comment section as well. Um, and
Here you
here's
go.
the deal,
Looks
like,
looks
buy
looks
your
like that.
copy. Yeah, it looks like that.
And there's
Buy your
actually,
copy and then show up and get it signed by Rich. Go ahead.
I wanted to point out in here that I've got even more stuff, surprises in the book itself, but there is a QR code in the book that leads to an online vault of resources, training, templates, how-tos, webinars, a story within a story called Tales of Insightsville.
Ooh, I like insightful.
Yeah, Insightsville is a cool place. It's over the hills from Biastown.
Well, we always want to be on the other side of Biastown, I guess.
Yeah, always want to be on the other side of Biastown. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, a lot of days by the river, having fun with really, again, in the most potent and fleeting emotion. It's one thing to say, here, I know the seven main emotions, but boy, I tell you what, if you know how to manage that bridge between the red and the green, which is surprised and its resulting emotions, if you can manage that in any communications, your communications will be 100% more effective, because you'll know how engagement happens. You'll know what to do with that moment, and you'll know how to close whatever close is for you, whether it's a sale or findings from the x-rays. There's a way of making it very emotional to them, and by that I mean in a good way, and they feel heard and seen, which is, rather than transacted or done with.
Mm.
Those are two big deals. Again, watch any football game. I noticed this with the Seahawks. This last not last week they had a bye with, but the week prior, how many calls for mental health? How many commercials for mental health services were in the football game? You know, it used to be beer and cars, and there's a lot of folks that need help. Who better equipped than the chiropractic community to make sure those nerves are firing the way they should, so people should feel the way they should. I mean, it's just there's so much sense that you've brought to chiropractic with what you've done with us, what you did already, and again, the ultimate marketing boot camp with what we've got planned in Pigeon Forge. I haven't even told you this next thing, but I'll have to tell you later
This
because
even has a surprise for me.
yeah, I got a surprise for you. But I mean, I'm assuming it had never been done, but I think we should pull it off. And well, I'm going to pull it off whether you want me to or not.
Okay, good. I like that. Total
It's
delegation. You got
well, I
it.
want them to. Here's what I want them to leave with something in their hand they can plug and play as soon as they get back, and they will. I'll say that much. A very valuable thing.
Ooh. All right. So you got to get your ticket to the Ultimate Marketing Boot Camp. Like, grab your copy of the book, then come to the Ultimate Marketing Boot Camp, meet Rich, get this free surprise. And you know, like, we're in the boot camp right now. We're reading Atomic Habits by James Clear. I think you and I were talking about that the other day.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, he says you can, if you improve one area of your life 1% a day, in a year's time, you'll be 37 times better at that, right? So I just started calculating some of those numbers. So if right now, like let's say this year you earned $100,000 and you improve that by 1% per day, next year instead you'll earn 3.7 million. If you do that and you earned $250,000 this year and you apply that same principle, I think you're at like 9,750,000. If you're 500,000 and you apply that, it's like 18, I think it's 18,250. I'm sorry,
It's
18,250,000. So like, even just coming to get this little thing that Rich is giving us away, this surprise, will likely change your outcomes with your marketing by 37 times. So like $3.5 million.
yeah, I want to replicate the success. I mean, I'm fortunate to be at a place where it's like, man, this is we think about this too hard because here's something kind of profound. You've never been taught to think. You've only been told to think. And
Right.
what makes that even hurt more is what to think of. You know, that's this box that people keep saying, you got to think outside of the box. Yeah, because you've been programmed to think when somebody asks you to think and you don't know where to think or how to think. Well, now you do. And that's the fun part of this is like, oh, I never thought of that. And you can see it work in so many different ways. Just it takes away a lot of the woo woo, as we call it sometimes in our certification classes, because oh, this reminds me of The Secret. Well, yeah, it's called your reticular activating system, and you can do whatever you want with it whenever you want. Go to bed, say, I want this problem fixed in the morning. You wake with the problem fixed. You can manifest that stuff because manifestation is nothing but electrochemical, which are controlled by thought. Your whole brain is controlled by what you think. If you always catch a cold in February and you keep telling yourself you always catch a cold in February, I bet you in February you catch a cold.
Even without a net, you're going to catch it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you say, if you take those little easy frameworks, that one I did in sales where my goal once a week, I only want to make one sale a week. And the sale had to be 12 weeks. And after a while, those things start stacking in on each other. And because they're on the air for 12 weeks, and all of a sudden I've got 12 and 12. And of course I renew, those folks. And now all of a sudden it's 24 and 12 and 36 and 12. And that's how you make money
Yeah.
in radio sales. I mean, it's good for the client because they need to not be a one and doneer. They need to be with the audience, which again goes back to A before E. They want you'll buy who you trust from. The only
Yeah.
time when you don't buy who you don't trust from is when it's just a dire emergency and you answered the phone or something. But
Right.
you make most of your decisions based on trust. Trust is what? Series of emotions built up over time. So why don't you have that recipe? If you're making bread, you follow a recipe, don't deviate. If you're
Yeah.
communicating, follow a recipe, don't deviate. It's very malleable, just like bread. You can have 1,000 kinds of bread, 1,000 kinds of communication, but it is still basically the same structure.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Where does predictability neurologically play into communication with this element of surprise? They almost seem in my mind like they're opposition.
Yeah, and that's if you're looking at surprise like boo, or scary
Okay.
happy birthday or things like that. I'm talking about the nuancy and nuance surprises. That's where the artistry comes in. And it's to where they get surprised and it's like, huh, like you might do this one little gesture for somebody and you plan it accordingly, not
Okay.
big, giant grandeur surprises. That's what the movies make us think surprise is. Scooby Doo, it's the kids, those meddling kids. It's always the surprise, and it's always scary or it's always happy birthday. But
Okay.
it's the nuancy things, and that's where the artistry comes in, and that's what the book is. So it literally goes over 38 different kinds of surprises and say, here's what this kind of surprise is, this is what you can do with it, this is how you build it.
So it's almost like surprise can be replaced with insight.
You could be, I would use surprise to get insight. It's a launching pad. Surprise is a catalyst.
Mm,
You see what I mean? It is that yellow bridge part. It gets you from one place to another, like unengaged to engaged, or emotionally evolved versus not. It depends on how you wield it. And a lot of times we'll say, I don't know why that happened. Well, if you actually deconstruct what happened, they had a negative surprise that was temporal. So they not only felt bad, but it was bad for them because of the way it came across. Yes, I was surprised that she said that. Right? I mean,
mhm.
there's so many different connotations for surprise. That's one of the big things about the book is like, it's not Scooby Doo. It's not Boo. It's not that at all. That's one kind of surprise. And we go to see it because we love that anticipation. Like we're almost programmed this way. Like when you're a kid and you have a Jack in the Box, the clown is going to come out. Even when you're a kid, it's going to come out.
Yeah.
But even you're cranking away and that anticipation, and then bam, the thing. And no matter when it comes out, you're still surprised. That's called a foreshadowed surprise. It's coming, but it's delivered with such impact. This is where we get into the layers of surprise. It's
Okay.
delivered with such impact and valiancy that you get a different kind of effect from it. So if you like to cook or bake, you'll love surprise because you can cook and bake with it to get what you want.
Mm.
It's crazy.
So so here's kind of what my take is on, and part of the reason I learned I was intrigued by BCD was I didn't wanna just have to create more videos and more reels and more stuff.
Yeah.
Like, let me just see if I can drown people and become almost annoying. Like, I just kind of felt like there's gotta be a better way. And that's when BCD and now surprise really got my attention of, "Oh, wait, I can do less, have a greater impact, and honor what I already am so passionate about with neurology." So to me, if you're someone who's watching this and you think of like the ultimate marketing boot camp, like I don't want to learn more marketing stuff. Like I know it's necessary, but if you tell me I have to do another reel, I'm gonna like shoot myself. Buy your ticket to the ultimate marketing boot camp. We're not going to just tell you how to do more social media strategies. We're going to teach you how to communicate in a to brain instead of just hoping, rolling the dice and hoping for the best. So I
Yeah.
love the possibility of BCD.
Yeah. And I was just going to bring up the fact, when you say you can apply it to different things, for those listening or watching, I started a YouTube channel for the learning sciences and cognitive learning or cognitive neuroscience called desktop neuroscience, not necessarily subject matter that's, on everybody's
Yeah.
list. And what I did, and I started this like the last day, I started it on my birthday, April 28th is when I
Okay.
started with no followers, just a brand new thing. And the goal was, while I was writing this book, was to get these concepts and put it into little 30 or less than 3 minutes, have them be kind of TikTok-y, not just some guy yapping, but, and then have you walk away from watching this video with new knowledge, with something you could do. I just got a report this morning. We just topped 3,000 followers, 3,000 subscribers. Every video that comes out gets like 5, 6, 7,000 views. And it's actually become my biggest business source because instead of being that scientist in a white coat, I'm just saying, hey, here's this brain. We didn't have this recipe when we grew up. We have it now. I mean, we really, really have it. And here's a cool way of distributing it. I know you buy the book, you read a chapter, whenever, because that's the way it's written. You read one chapter, you can get something out of it. Same thing with desktop neuroscience. Watch one video, you'll get something out of it. Now, granted, there is one cool promo about the book on there, but the rest of the stuff is stuff you'll learn from. And what people are doing is they're drowning in information. And so when you're coming off as lecturing or the know-it-all, I'm tuning you out so fast because our BS protectors or detectors, I should say, they're everybody, they're on high.
Yeah.
Now with AI, even higher, you don't even know what's real anymore.
Yeah.
And that's super wild. So when somebody comes in and speaks clearly that you like immediately trust, and whatever they're speaking about is profoundly personal, you made it that way by listening to them. You go, this applies to me. This is all about me. He understands me. She understands me. They hear me. You've got a client. And I'm not saying be all sappy. I'm saying be Oprah, know better, do better. Otherwise, stop complaining because there is a better way. It is science, and that's what makes it fun. That's where the predictable results come from. To your question in a roundabout, I don't know if I answered about the predictability and surprise clash.
Mm-hmm.
Predictability is a great asset to have. Like if I was a chiropractor, my mantra would be to be predictable, consistent, and kind. So they know what they're going to get when they come to me. They're going to consistently get that. And I'm a nice guy, and they'll always get that. So that's my overall structure. That's my predictable structure. Surprise, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's a nuance. So these little things are going to continually make you tilt your head and lean in and become attentive, even if it's for a millisecond. They will be on purpose, and I will know what to do with that recovery period directly following the surprise to get you to do what I want you to do, which is going to be win-win because I want you going out and telling your friends. You are
So
my best
what a
advertising
great,
vehicle.
what a great marketing slogan there of like build your YouTube channel to 5,000 active subscribers in what, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, in 6 months without spending any money. Like that's pretty impressive, especially if they keep showing up.
Well, they do. You get all these metrics now, and it's pretty neat. And they literally tell you what they want. And like some of the stuff I'll be bringing to Pigeon Forge is how I use AI to make sure what I talk about is what people want to hear.
Oh,
Because there's some prompts, there's some really neat things you can do that will jostle your thinking, will surprise you when you're used to Google and you know how to ask certain questions in the right way to get what you want. And I've been doing things for chiropractors, so I've used it on a couple things, and it's pretty astounding. And the efficiencies, especially when it's your own shingle, you go through all this school, you get your place, you're in this mall, and now what? Now what? I hope people show up. So there's again a calculated plan for that, and not only to get them in the door, but to keep them in the door and have them tell your friends. I always say the tell your friends part because I have found in my career that my clients were always my best marketing vehicles. If I could perform well for you, you would tell, brand X. And that was always my goal. And now with science, it's like I take all the intuitive things everybody knows, because most of this stuff that you, as you know, when we bring up in class, all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's why that happens, or that's why I think this way, or that's how come that happens after that. We do a lot of this stuff intuitively. We just now have scientific explanations. And now those scientific explanations are literally in a recipe, just like bread. Not so much like cooking, more like bread than cooking, meaning that you have to use the right ingredients in the right amount at the right time. Cooking is wine, music, and a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Baking, right ingredients, right amount at the right time.
Right.
And that's how that's the way the brain works. So
Right.
that's why when I'm working, I usually have fun. I think, what are we cooking today? I say that all the time, because to me, this is like, okay, I've got the framework. I know I need flour here, but it's my choice on kind of flour, depending on what kind of outcome. I'm going to use 00 for pizza crust and regular for bread, or whatever the analogy would be there, doing a quick thing of baking. But you understand what I'm saying. It's there.
Yeah.
There are certain things for the brain you have to do from the very get-go. Like you spoke of the amygdala earlier, which I call the bouncer for club brain. You can't get in till you get past Amy.
That's right.
Actually, that came from another. Yeah, that came from another Tracy Ann Dean, one of the original BCIDs, thought of the bouncer
Oh,
for club brain. So got to
gotcha.
give credit where credit's due.
That's cool. So long story short, buy your copy of Surprised, The Science and Art of Engagement. I have a link in the comment section. You can find it on Amazon, Surprised, The Science and Art of Engagement with Rich Carr. Buy that. Get your ticket to Ultimate Marketing Bootcamp and let us help you make sense of this crazy marketing world that seems to change nonstop. So the cool thing about learning the neuroscience of communication is, regardless of the platform, regardless of what they're going to tell us to do next for marketing, we can always come in with predictable ways to engage with our audience that works, regardless of what changes. This is not going to change. Our brain
Yeah.
is going to be wired the same way and need the same thing. So this really is the game changer and the missing secret behind effective, consistent, predictable marketing. So, Rich,
I
as
love
we
the way you bring up that fact that you don't need an app or anything. This is not technology or an app.
yeah,
Once you learn this technique, you can do it on the beach with a stick in the sand. That's all.
yeah,
It's that was. Thank you for bringing that up.
you're welcome. Um, and as we close, what last words do you want to say to our audience?
Embrace the unexpected. I
Mm,
mean, in the unexpected is you can look at it as a bad thing. I prefer to look at it as an opportunity to learn something new, because that's how knowledge is acquired. Everything you remember is shaped by surprise. But
cool.
thank you for your time, Barb. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day. God bless you. And we'll see you at the Ultimate Marketing Bootcamp.